The UFC heads to Abu Dhabi this weekend for its first of two planned events in the region in 2024, and they bring with them a bantamweight banger between Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. Originally scheduled for the co-main event, we had Nick Diaz making his return, going up against Vicente Luque. Unfortunately, travel restrictions have booted Nick Diaz out of that spot, and the UFC has turned their eye to another Abu Dhabi, or at least Middle Eastern favorite, in Magomedov, who looks to continue his winning streak and build upon his June victory over Antonio Tricali. He takes on the ever-aggressive Pole Michal Oleksiejczuk. So very fun matchup there. In terms of my perspective, I think that's going to be far more entertaining than the originally scheduled Diaz versus Luque fight. And we'll end up seeing Diaz and Luque later on this year, so we'll see if that ends up ringing true. Just a reminder, this is a quick picks version of the UFC Abu Dhabi breakdown. If you're looking for me going way more in depth on these fights, check out the MMA Lockcast, which I drop every Monday of fight week. You can hit the link in the description below, or just go to my YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe while you're there anyway, and check out the full card breakdown there. Otherwise, I'm going to get right to the point of why I'm picking each fighter to win each of these matchups. So, without further ado, I hope you're laced up and ready to go, because we're off and running with the first fight of the night, which goes down between Cedric Dumas and Denis Tiuliulin. This is a matchup that was scheduled earlier this year, but travel restrictions permitted Dumas from traveling, and obviously they're able to put it together for this weekend. I do think that this is a fight where Tiuliulin, if he can show off his takedown defense, he should be able to be the superior striker here, and I think he can really touch up Dumas and end up finding the knockout. Next up, Herbert going up against Rolando Bedoya. Obviously, we got a power puncher in Bedoya, but we got the technically better fighter here in Herbert. If his durability can hold up for him, I expect him to go out there, out-volume and outpace Bedoya and win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Victoria Dudakova going up against Sam Hughes. Hughes is always a live underdog as long as she's not at a huge physicality disadvantage as she was in her last fight against Yasmin Yaragui. I expect her to put on a bit of a pace here and really put Dudakova through the grind, and at least picking up 2 rounds here to win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Kutateladze welcomes Jordan Vucenic to the UFC. And unfortunately for Vucenic, taking this fight on short notice, just about a week and a half to 2 weeks after his last matchup, going up a weight class against a talent like Kutateladze. I really think he's up against it here, and I think we'll see Kutateladze's strength and overall game overpower Vucenic here and win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Shamil Gaziev coming in against Dontel Mays. Gaziev looking to rebound from that main event loss that he had suffered at the hands of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I think we're going to see a very pissed off Gaziev coming into the cage this weekend, and I think he steamrolls Dontel Mays, finishing him in the first or second round. Next up, Yahya, going up against Cowie Fernandes. I don't really understand why Fernandes is such a big favorite here. Sure, he might be the more dangerous and threatening fighter, but I think Yahya can put him through the grind. We've seen Fernandes get grinded out in past fights, and even in fights that he ended up winning, he spends a little bit too much time on his back, and I feel Yahya at plus 340 is worth a bit of a sprinkle here to go out there and grind Fernandes out and win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Azamat Murzakanov going up against Alonzo Menifield. Both guys have the power to put their opponents away, which is why it's always difficult to bet heavy chalk against Menifield, considering the power that he possesses and how quickly he can change the tide of a fight. I still think Murzakanov has more tools to get the job done here, and as long as he can stay safe from the power that Menifield provides, I think he can go out there and eventually find his own knockout within the first 2 rounds. Next up, an all-violence fight here between Joel Alvarez going up against Elvis Brener. Brener may have more tools in the toolkit, but I think Alvarez is just a little bit more dangerous with how big and long he is, not to mention that a power that he produces and how he can get opponents to shell up and start picking them apart. Alvarez is just as dangerous, but I think Alvarez has a little bit more tools in terms of his ability to sink in chokes and really put the pressure on with his elbows and knees, and I think that will eventually catch up to Brener here, allowing Alvarez to finish Brener within 2 rounds. Next up, Mackenzie Dern going up against Lupita Godinez. We know that Dern's going to be looking to get this fight to the ground, while Godinez is going to be looking to outstrike her. And I'm hoping that Godinez learned from her last matchup against Jandiroba, where she is not going to engage in the clinch whatsoever, utilize her footwork to really touch up Dern and really stop the takedowns, the poor takedown attempts of Mackenzie Dern. And that should allow Godinez to land the better damage throughout this matchup and win it on the scorecards. Next up, Tony Ferguson looking to buck the 7-fight losing streak that he's on, going up against Michael Chiesa, who comes in at a mind-blowing -610. Now, Chiesa has the chops to go out there and utilize his grapple-heavy approach to keep Ferguson on his back, but considering that Chiesa has been submitted in 5 of his 7 losses, it's tough not to take a poke on Tony Ferguson by submission at plus 1200. I'm still going to lean on Chiesa to win this matchup by decision, but no way would I tie -600 to any parlays. The value is clearly on the Ferguson side. Next up, Marlon Vera going up against Davison Figueiredo. High-level bantamweight matchup here, but I think Figueiredo's overall style will allow him to triumph. I think he'll utilize a lot of calf kicks to eventually open up his takedowns, and I think he'll be able to land enough damage and grind this fight out long enough to eventually win it on the scorecards. Co-main event, Magomedov going up against Michał Oleksiejczuk. I think that we'll see Oleksiejczuk crowd the space of Magomedov, causing him a lot of issues in terms of trying to get to his kicking heavy game that usually makes him so successful. Oleksiejczuk has a little bit of a durability issue, but if he can rein it in for this matchup and really keep Magomedov on the back foot, he should be able to land that big power, and I think he could possibly knock out Magomedov in the first 2 rounds. Main event time here as we have Corey Sandhagen looking to defend his ranking, going up against Nurmagomedov, who's looking to get his 18th win in a row. I think Nurmagomedov's overall skill set here will allow him to stay away from the dangers that the unorthodox striking approach of Sandhagen poses, and I think we'll see Nurmagomedov eventually resort to his wrestling, keeping Sandhagen on his back and grinding this fight out over 25 minutes and winning it on the scorecards. There you guys go. Quick picks for UFC Abu Dhabi. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for the free parlay, not to mention the 3 best prop bets. See you guys then. Peace.